Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the latest episode of What We Do in the Shadows, The Railroad. And I actually really enjoyed this one. It didn't go to complete heights that we have seen previously on the show, but I think it delivered a very solid episode that really got some laughs out of me, and some nice character development, very nice character development, and a nice kind of fusing of the A and B storylines. So we start off with Jerry giving his lowdown for everybody for what's kind of going on for his take over the New World kind of plan. The funniest part was like Laszlo pretty much just miming that he like had a phone and just fucking off. Jerry's like, yeah, I know you don't have anything like that, and everybody else kind of just dispersed to be like, yeah, we don't want any part of this except for Colin Robinson, who's almost taking this passive aggressive like fuck you kind of thing to this dude. I do like that it has done the impetus that Colin wants a friend, and his kind of connection that he's making with the monster that him and Laszlo have created. And that kind of continues on forward as they're kind of like mucking with the monster. And I'm going to call it the A one because that's the one that we're kind of introduced to first, is that Sean needs a job. He's fired from his previous job and he's looking for another one. And then that pretty much takes up Colin Robinson and Laszlo. The B, of course, follows Guillermo and to a lesser extent Nadja, but more Guillermo, Nandor, as they're doing stuff with the Canon Capital. Nadja kind of like is screwed over at the moment, where her story is more just piggybacking off of what's kind of going on with Guillermo. So I hope that kind of evens out as we continue on in the season. I like her and I like the doll, and I do like it when she kind of like gets her own kind of stuff, so we'll kind of see what happens there. But we see that people are like kind of trying to figure out how Guillermo like jumped up so high in the rankings at Canon Capital, because he was in the mail. I like that not a lot of time has passed and people are like, you were in the fucking mailroom, what the fuck are you doing as an analyst? Junior analyst. As first we see that Nandor is having an effect on the people. He's being kind of too much up in their business, and Jordan, of course, is being an asshole and wants him to be fired, and pretty much tasks Guillermo with doing this. At first, he pretty much just gets Nandor to just try and stay in the background, but that doesn't succeed before he's pretty much forced onto that. We also get this whole thing as we see them doing this kind of dinner and saying that he fucking loves you guys and everything. Jordan and Guillermo having a good time, and Nandor looking in and being very sad and everything, before we understand that Guillermo has to fire him. And seeing him fire him, at first you're thinking, is he going to quit or whatnot? Because he's pretty much going through the same kind of things that he was going through with Nandor as being the vampire and the familiar. I hope he connects these kind of things as well. He also gets back home at one point drunk after the dinner and tells Nadja that she hasn't done jack shit, and that she of course thinks that he wouldn't be anywhere there if it wasn't for her. So she then goes to prove her own and tries to pretty much link up the story with Laszlo and Colin Robinson. Because at the start, we had seen that they were screwing around with the monster and Sean needs a job, and he wanted to get an interview with the railroad company. And this is actually a very great episode to showcase how Laszlo views his friends. Colin's like, why don't you just fucking hypnotize him or whatnot? It's like, I can't do that. I've hypnotized him so much, it would... He is literally so stupid from what we've over-hypnotized him with, it would just make him stupider, and I can't really fucking do that. And he still considers Sean a friend. He then hires people, rents out a place, and sets up a fake thing for the railroad to then give an interview to Sean. That's a good friend. Granted, he's made this situation for himself by over-hypnotizing Sean and everything, but he could have just said, fuck it. He could have just killed him. He could have just fucked with him if he wanted to. He actually wanted to help out his friend. And Colin actually goes along with it because it's also another opportunity to prove that the monster is not a killing machine, as they have Sean interview with the monster, and the monster doing like the typical kind of stuff, and Sean, of course, has no mental capacity to understand what's kind of off about this dude, but they connect on the railroad, and the thing is, you would actually think that they would probably do pretty well at the railroad, and they rented this space, they hired actors, they've set up props and shit, and they're actually giving direction to these people of like what's going on, and it actually kind of works. This, of course, dovetails with Nadja as she attempts to sell an investment into this fake railroad company to Jordan. And she then, of course, takes Guillermo, well, not Guillermo, but takes some other people there. And they're like, are you just fucking with us right here? Before they find out that they're renting it for like $3,500 and setting this up for like a good investment opportunity. And that's pretty much where it ends off with that, because then it gets them out of Sean's kind of thing, because he was going to be given VP of it, and it's like, oh, okay. And Sean's not having any of that and is kind of pissed off, but then goes off and continues to try and find VP employment. Vice president employment is like, come on, man, what the fuck? Oh my god. And Nandor really does not take being fired very well, but he's able to kind of hide it off from Guillermo first before telling the documentary crew to like fucking leave him alone, tossing shit and everything. It's like, how is this going to affect? Because Guillermo got put into a position of power over him and fired him. And we'll have to see how that kind of works out. Though even when I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, you kind of rent the spaces, but normally would it be like the building? See, it's interesting because then I'm thinking about like the corporate kind of structure and everything. Would the building employ Nandor to take care of the premises, or would Cannon Capital employ the janitor to take care of the premises? It's interesting to think of those kind of dynamics, but in this case, of course, they're the ones that are employing Nandor. It's like, okay, let's see what kind of happens here. And even though he was doing weird shit and how he was doing it with regards to actually doing his janitorial duties, he was not being a dick about it. He took it seriously. He was trying to be personable to the people. It's really kind of cool to see these positive kind of traits in our characters here, when we usually see kind of the Seinfeld effect of like, these are all a bunch of assholes, who's going to be this kind of asshole here? So Laszlo pretty much got the best kind of spotlight on this because he had like a story where he was helping his friend. And Colin Robinson, who could have just sat back and fucked around and probably energy fed off of the whole entire crazy situation, decides to actually help him as well. I like seeing that kind of camaraderie and actually just working together for different kind of scenarios here, especially when you've got them paired kind of together, and we've seen them doing the pairing of Colin Robinson, of course, going through his life cycle and everything, Laszlo raising him and all that. But I like this kind of dynamic as they're almost kind of parents to the monster, whereas Laszlo did a little bit, Colin Robinson did a little bit, and then them just like doing this whole kind of scenario. And Nadja, even though it's coming from a place of fear that Guillermo will fucking kill them, trying to help him at Cannon Capital, as well as Nandor pretty much keeping an eye on him as well. It's nice to kind of see those balances and to see how these characters react in those situations, and sometimes they act better than you would actually expect them to act in these certain scenarios. And you're like, oh, okay. Like Nandor, you would think that he would just fucking flip out on Guillermo. And Season 1 Nandor probably would do that. This one has kind of learned a little bit, can kind of hold off on that before kind of going off on that kind of thing. So we'll see what ramifications we get on this. I think Jerry's just going to be kind of in the background doing this kind of weird shit. We'll probably get that kind of resolution, hopefully, at some point. But I'm interested to see what's going to be going on with the monster, what they're able to do and accomplish with that. I like that we got a nice Sean-centric story because sometimes those are pretty interesting, like the superb owl and all that kind of shit. Oh, God. Guillermo's is going to be the interesting kind of resolution. If he comes to a realization that, yes, he has gotten into a good spot in the human world, but he has to recognize that he was also given help and everything like that, and he was able to take advantage of that help. And even though he was able to get these kind of clients and everything, if he didn't have that foot in the door, he wouldn't have been able to get those chances. And especially since Jordan is essentially acting like how the vampires treat. I'm waiting for another shoe to drop where they're like Jordan and Cannon Capital is some other kind of supernatural being. So we'll see if that kind of pots out. But there's a lot of kind of good stuff. I liked this episode a lot more than the kind of 3 bum rush that they did. We've got 11 episodes. We've got 7 more. Yes. And we're going to see where this kind of works out. Seeing this here, I'm like, okay, I can see why they did what they did to kind of get it kind of set up. But there was just some unevenness on what was kind of going on. But I like where we locked in on this episode, and hopefully this continues throughout the rest of the season. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.